Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the ANC's December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalan. The Free State Provincial General Council is underway in Parys. The meeting precedes the Provincial Elective Congress due to be held in December. The ANC head office has deployed Jesse Duarte to address the Free State PGC. The council will consolidate nominations from branches before they are handed over to Secretary General Mantashe's office. The meeting follows the ANC Dispute Resolution Committee's intervention in complaints lodged over branch general meetings. The province, which is led by Provincial Chairperson Magashule, is expected to endorse Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as its preferred candidate, but it remains to be seen if delegates will vote as a united bloc.
When they are concluded, they'll just be added to the overall number today. Because look, in as much as all these things must happen, the courts and people are unhappy, ANC process must unfold in terms of national conference. And that's why we did it. But partly, as I said, the outgoing leadership ought to convene the PGC so that they are then part and parcel of the leadership that is going to account for everything around the process of the nominations of delegates. As a province, at one point, we had to sit down, analyze the ANC politics, analyze the country, and say, what type and what direction do we think as a province the country must take? And our conclusion at that time was that, look, we think that the resolution of Mangaung, which characterized what the ANC said is the second phase of transition of the South African struggle, its content is radical economic transformation, must still guide us even beyond December. December conference must adopt that program of action and it must guide us moving forward. And it is that program upon which, as a province, in engagement with our branches before nominations, must guide us as we deal with issues of the leadership.
Meanwhile, the SACP in Free State is going head-to-head with the ANC in the Metsimahulu local municipalities by-elections tomorrow. The move is seen as a test case for the SACP's ability to stand on its own in the 2019 general elections.
You to know that Communist Party is contesting there, and it has created very difficult conditions for the African National Congress, especially when the instruction from National is that you must continue to preserve the alliance moving forward. But it has always been the view of the Free State that we must be the last one who will call for the dissolution of the alliance. We're continuing those debates and discussions with the party to reconsider their approach. Of course, they're saying we don't contest the ANC, we're contesting state power. We're also appreciating that theory. But we're saying we want to continue to engage the party in the province to reconsider that stand, because in our belief, the South African struggle still require a consolidated mass struggle led by the ANC, the workers and the communists.
We now cross over to our reporter Giovanni Majani out in the Free State. Giovanni, a warm welcome to you. Now, you're in Parys where the Free State ANC is holding its PGC. There were reports as early as yesterday that some members are unhappy with the timing of this PGC because they received the notice late yesterday like the rest of us. Has the leadership perhaps addressed the timing issue?
Definitely. Good afternoon to you, Mfundo, and good afternoon to the viewers. We do understand that it has been a busy back-to-back of events, such as meets, knowing that the by-elections are happening on tomorrow, on the 29th. We also know that there has been a number of conferences that have been called back-to-back, which have aligned with a number of court cases. We've heard from the ANC spokesperson here in the Free State, Thabo Meko, saying there has at least been 4 times that they were called into court. Questions about their leadership, questions on the BGMs that have to take place, questions on whether they are capable of running the province and going into December. But with me, just to tell us a bit more, knowing the insight that he has, is the Free State chair himself, Ntate Dr. Magashule. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot of questions have been raised on the capabilities of those who are leadership in the Free State. Is there any comment of this?
How can you ask that question when the leadership of the ANC has been there for years? This leadership has been re-elected from time to time by the membership of the ANC in the province. its legitimacy has never been challenged. Even in court yesterday, those who went to court actually withdrew the fact that the PEC is a credible, legitimate provincial executive committee.
So we do know that a few faces of the ANC members have not arrived for today's PGC, stating that there are less than 10 branches that need to go through reruns. Is there any questions or any comment that you'd like to give to people who don't have an understanding of what's happening in the Free State, and to show that come December you would have consolidated things such as leadership and policies?
Well, we are happy. The process has been transparent. There are people who, the BGMs which have not succeeded, which have been run 8 times, 7 times, 9 times, and they are still given an opportunity. The disputes committee of the ANC at head office, not from the province, has been dealing with disputes. They have dealt with more than 60 disputes in this province. They spend days and nights without sleeping, and it's wonderful when they say this is what the outcome is all about. So we are more than 90%, so we can go to a conference. And those who are still supposed to be rerun, they are very few, less than 8, less than 10, less than 4, less than 5. They still have an opportunity. We hope they will correct so that we don't leave anybody. This province is solid, is united.
Thank you so much. We do know, just final question, we know that we've taken you out of the PGC. If you know, the unity, knowing that social media is very powerful. There has been leadership such as National SG Gwede Mantashe stating that delegates who go into vote into December must choose a deputy president in line with this succession. That obviously we do know the Free State has said there is no such a rule or policy of the ANC, as well as Baleka Mbete, Speaker of the ANC, stating that President Jacob Zuma should continue, end his term with dignity and let it go there.
Well, the ANC constitution says anybody has a right to elect, dominate, and also has a right to be elected for as long as a member is in good standing. So that's what the ANC position is all about. And we have used it since 1990, after the unbanning of the ANC. Everybody has been nominated and elected. And where we have to engage, where we can reach consensus, our province and other provinces, Mpumalanga, KZN, Northwest, Gauteng, we are still open to making sure. But ultimately, we have to arrive at the ballot, and we'll definitely have a very disciplined conference, both provincially and national. You can see our delegates here are very well behaved. They will also behave as we go to conference.
And the prospects of President Zuma finishing his term in time?
That will be the wish of the National Executive Committee after December.
Thank you so much for your time. So as you've heard, the responsibility is in the hands of the delegates who are leaving today's PGC with the comments of consolidating the policies and knowing the leadership as well. This goes into December, where all provinces will meet under one roof. The power continues to be in the hands of the voting delegates. So all eyes are on the manner in which these delegates are going to continue these meetings in. We do know as the ANC, there is a slogan that goes high moral, high discipline, which they use. So hopefully they too will back their words in the year of Oliver Regional Tambo with the slogan, deepening unity.
No, thank you very much to our reporter Giovanni Machani out in the Free State. Now today in studio we're joined by political analyst Oliver Dixon and group political editor Sfiso Mahlangu. Gentlemen, welcome to the both of you. Now, perhaps, Sfiso, to start with you. Good afternoon. Now, perhaps to start with you, Sfiso. The Free State chair there quickly squashed that whole tradition argument, rather advocating for contestation. What is your take on just that?
Well, it's very interesting that the narrative of tradition in the ANC has been introduced this far. If such a tradition existed, there wouldn't be an elective conference, because immediate succession would happen. One would just decide, well, you know, this person is the deputy, so automatically or traditionally that person should become the president. But because according to the constitution of the ANC, anyone who is in right standing in the organization can contest for any position. At this point, there are 7 people contesting for the office of the president. I think Mr. Mantashe's comments made at the time was to try and manage the succession. They were trying to narrate the succession debate to suit Mr. Ramaphosa, because obviously Mr. Gwede Mantashe is on Ramaphosa's slate as chairperson. So we don't know if he was speaking as the current SG or was he speaking as the future chairperson. But according to the ANC constitution, anyone can contest for any position as long as anyone is a member of the party in good standing. I've seen the tweets by Mr. Mantashe, the backup he's received from Member of Parliament and Chief Whip, Mr. Jackson Mthembu, and others like him. But it seems there was a bit of confusion because Mr. Mantashe was nominated from the floor in order to become the SG of the party. He didn't make any slate, but there was also no tradition involved. It was very strange that in the latter days, people, even COSATU, wanted to prosper Mr. Ramaphosa so much that I think in a sense they violated the ANC constitution. If they say the branches decide, they should have allowed the branches to decide. But often and many times in this year, it really felt like people at Luthuli House and people who are pro-Cyril in this race were trying to put him up on a unity ticket. Were trying to succeed him on a traditionalist ticket, overlooking the constitution of the ruling party.
Now, Oliver, on to Metsimahulu, because Giovanni also touched on the event that's taking place tomorrow, the by-elections. Now, many are saying that this is a significant by-election. It was from the onset when it was announced, because to a certain extent, many are saying this is the SACP starting a process to leave the alliance and by testing and going about testing their electoral might. What's your take?
Look, the SACP must make it very clear to what extent they want to contest independently, right? They've given us indications that they will pilot a program where they will start contesting against the ANC, at least at local government level. The SACP is not naive to the fact that they would never win national elections and that without their support, the ANC may possibly lose the national elections, and that the tripartite alliance is incredibly important to hold together if the ANC is to maintain or at least go above the 58% that it currently holds. Anything lower than a 50% would possibly lead us into a coalition government, and there's some talks about that never ever happening by Julius Malema. But importantly, the SACP needs to make it clear as to how far they're separating from the ANC. So the SACP must tell us that they're only interested in local government functioning, and they must explain why specifically only local government functioning. Perhaps they think they're better at service delivery than the ANC. I don't know. But they must distinct whether or not that means they will also contest in a national election, and if not, how possible in the future would that be?
They have made mention of the fact that they would be keen to contest the 2019 elections. They said so. They held their conference. So it's something that they've spoken out about.
Yeah, they've spoken at least as an idea, but nothing concrete as far as like the party's Congress is concerned. Importantly, and this is exactly the sort of chat that was had around whether or not the positions of Puti Manamela and Nomvula Makonyane are in threat in a Jacob Zuma reshuffle, because the SACP was threatening to contest by themselves.
We'll definitely have to
people's
come back to
positions
this
were
SACP argument and also Rupen's Fisa on that one. But let's quickly go to KZN. Now, the ANC in eThekwini is working hard to settle BGM disputes amicably and on time. The region is also preparing for its regional general council. The ANC's biggest region in KwaZulu-Natal has dealt with dozens of appeals, and 4 branches have so far qualified for reruns. Meanwhile, officials say they put all measures in place to ensure the credibility and transparency of the appeals process. This comes after some branches cast doubt on the process.
We had the appeals that were submitted to the national office as well as to the provincial office. Now as we speak, all of the appeals that were written, they have been attended and decision has been taken in all of them. We can say even though some of them were happy with the outcomes, others were not happy with the outcomes, but I think the ANC managed to go through this process in a very correct and credible manner, and those who have been told to rerun the branches. We are in the process of informing them so that in time they are going to rerun the branches. But we are hoping that it was a good process so that when we go to this national conference, we are going to the conference knowing that we are taking the branches that were elected in a credible process. Regions are allowed to convene all their delegates and then have a plan, take them through the proposals that are there in terms of the policies of the African National Congress. It's going to be just a short or a brief RGC where we'll just go through some of the proposals that were done during the policy conference and remind our delegates that these were the positions that we brought forward when we were having our policy conference, and this was the position of KZN. And then after that, we then consolidate some of the views here and there as the views that as the region will be taken forward to our provincial general council, which will start on Monday.
We now cross over to our reporter Nomusa Pungula, who's in Durban. Nomusa, warm welcome to you. Now, it's said the ANC in eThekwini is working to settle those BGM disputes, but are they moving with a satisfactory speed?
Well, good evening, Fundo, and good evening to our viewers. The regional secretary of eThekwini presented a very united front in terms of how the appeals have went, explaining to us the process of the appeals. He mentioned that they managed to look into all the 25 appeals that were brought to them, and out of those 25 appeals, only 4 were granted reruns, which means that the rest of the 20 had been declined, saying that those were said to have been run legitimately, so there is no need for them to have a rerun for those 20 BGMs. However, also speaking to those that had applied now for these appeals, they are saying that indeed they are not surprised with this particular outcome, as the region is currently giving feedback to those branches that had appealed. They are saying that they are not surprised for the fact that their appeals have been declined, but however they still stand by their ground, saying that indeed there were some discrepancies in those BGMs that had said. However, if the ANC is saying that those BGMs are legitimate, then they will try and see what other means they can take to make sure that they prove that those BGMs are indeed illegitimate. However, also the secretary of the region said that they are going to sit for an RGC where they are going to bring together all the delegates that have been chosen in these BGMs to come and consolidate their views on policy matters, just to give their stance on all these policy proposals that have been presented by the ANC in the policy conference, and also remind themselves where they stand within the region, but also what is it that they are going to take to the PGC that is set to take place next week, Monday. But also importantly, in Fundo, is that this particular region of eThekwini, you would remember that there were some branches that were heavily aggrieved, saying that they don't even have faith in the PEC of the province. However, within eThekwini region, the secretary said that they had a very integral committee that was handling all these appeals. Only the hope now is that everyone that had appealed is now happy with the outcome, of which is contrary to what we are getting from those that have appealed.
No, thank you very much, Nomusa, for that report, who's out in Durban. Now on to the succession debate. ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe has reiterated his position that succession must be managed. This stance has in the past drawn criticism for Mantashe. Mantashe has again weighed in on the succession debate, adding to concerns by some that the Secretary General is favouring Cyril Ramaphosa's campaign over Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Mantashe is nominated for the position of chairman on Ramaphosa's slate. Addressing the Western Cape Provincial General Council, Mantashe said ANC delegates must be honest with themselves when they elect leaders. Mantashe says delegates must keep succession in mind when electing a deputy.
Its succession in ANC cannot be a free-for-all. It must be managed. That is the character of an old movement. The number 2, Ubangaba, that 105-year-old movement says, let's overlook a sitting deputy president. There must be an explanation. Good to know. He is weak in this, he failed in this, I got competent in this aspect. So that the organization must have a peace of mind. In an organization as old as ours, succession must be managed. It can't be a free-for-all. But an old organization, when they talk of Xi Jinping in China, they talk of the Central Committee and the leadership of the party with Xi Jinping at the core. Do you get what? I love that. Precisely because they took him through a process for 40 years before he became General Secretary of the Communist Party. And I'm saying a 105-year-old movement must have the capacity and the ability and the will to manage its succession.
Mantashe also says radical economic transformation is ANC policy and does not belong to any faction. This is seen as an attempt to dissociate RET from Dlamini Zuma's campaign. Meanwhile, Ramaphosa has recently leaned more towards RET in his campaign speeches.
I think the Secretary of the ANC, Comrade Gwede Mantashe, is in order. Because really, if you are a member of the ANC, you must at all times make sure that you speak about the policies of the ANC. Like, for example, radical economic transformation is not Jacob Zuma's policy, it's the policy of the ANC.
I would also want to acknowledge what the SG said. It was very correct that no one must come with their own policies. First of all, the ANC is a liberation movement. It means the ANC must liberate the people. Therefore, the ANC is duty bound to sit at national level and adopt policies for its government officials to implement.
Firstly, we must be able to acknowledge decisions that are taken by the National Executive Committee of the ANC. And we must also be able to understand the SG's response in terms of all these hullabaloo that are going on about a certain policy that needs to be implemented, which is an individual policy, and one which we also believe that the policy that is being raved even by media, the so-called New Deal. We must remember that the so-called New Deal, I think, is a very capitalist approach, because we must also look at who is raising it and why it's been raised.
Now, Sfiso, your take on all of that, specifically Gwede Mantashe maintaining that succession needs to be managed, and if nothing else, the organization has to be explained to why the second in charge, the deputy president of the ANC and the country, is not fit for purpose.
Well, this is also up to the branches, that the branches would have to decide. This is a new formula in the nomination process in the ANC. And I don't think this will fly at the December convention. And this is the reason. If anything is tabled for the December conference, it had to be done so in July within the policy conference. There had to be a policy proposal to say, first we're going to vote for the president, and whoever loses out on the presidency automatically falls as the deputy president. But that policy proposal was never made. For that reason, it was never vetted, it was never voted upon. It was never discussed within the discussion on the second day of the policy conference called the Battle of Ideas. So they can't just raise it on the second day of the elective conference to say to 5,000 delegates, okay, we're not going to vote like we've always voted. We're going to introduce a new formula in voting.
But on to the challenge that he has posed to ANC members to say, tell us why the deputy president is not fit to become the president. He says that is the only way you can put delegates at ease.
It is up to the Constitution. I don't think for any reason ANC members must have a debate with Mr. Mantashe that is outside of the ANC Constitution. If any member will be a voting delegate at the December conference, they must be able to show Mr. Mantashe in the ANC's contract, in the ANC's constitution, and say, according to this constitution, anyone who wants to stand for the presidency has the right to, even Mr. Ramaphosa himself. And if the ANC delegates, the branches, want Mr. Ramaphosa to be the president, they will elect him so. But I don't think, Mfundo, that Mr. Jeff Radebe, who is the head of policy in the ANC, is unaware of this tradition. Otherwise, why is he standing? The chair of the National Assembly, who is also the chair of the ANC, is also standing for the presidency. Are you telling me that all those people are oblivious to the policy of the ANC? They cannot be. Are all those people oblivious to the traditions and the cultures of the ANC? They cannot be. I don't think Mr. Mantashe should use the ANC constitution when it suits him and to disperse it when it doesn't suit him. I think that's very disingenuous.
Oliver, your take?
I think importantly, we must separate from what is tradition and what is convenient. It is absolutely not tradition that the successor into presidency is always been the deputy president. There's no such consistent pattern within the ANC that suggests that is the case. However, it seems to be convenient that the deputy president should become the president. That's because the assumption is that the deputy president will continue, at least understand how the presidency works, and will continue to administer the policy that the ANC has decided upon. However, there's a contestation about what should the policy of the ANC be. It's clear that radical economic transformation is the policy of the ANC, and Gwede Mantashe is 100% correct about that. This has been the policy of the ANC for many years, for decades, but was highlighted and importantly adopted in Mangaung, and that's where it becomes important. However, there seems to be a political unwillingness to implement this because we have parallel structures such as the National Development Plan, which doesn't seem to consider radical economic transformation. So now you have two sorts of ANC policy directions, and you must sort of choose which one's convenient for you depending on how you politically align.
Unwillingness, where they're not willing to implement, or it's just been a question of pace?
It's parallel lines. Definitely parallel lines. Mr. Mantashe does not call the deputy president to order when he introduces a new deal. As the Secretary General, he is the lowest and the highest secretary.
So you maintain it's parallel lines, but thank you very much to the both of you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. And finally, to this week's poll question. This week, the question is, are state-owned enterprises captured by private interests? Do send us your answers, yes or no, to those platforms that appear on your screens. And that's where we leave it until next time.